Right now on the news at 5, we continue our breaking news coverage of the deadly DCA air disaster, and we thank you for joining us again. I'm Leslie Foster.
And I'm Lorenzo Hall. So we know so far at least 28 victims have been pulled from the Potomac River after last night's crash, and officials say there are no survivors.
A U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter collided with an American Airlines jet around 9 o'clock. The Earth Cam above the National Mall caught that collision right there as the plane attempted to land at Reagan National Airport. And as you can see, an urgent search effort is still underway. Boats are canvassing the Potomac right now, and we just got an update from the National Transportation Safety Board.
Our Matthew Torres was at that news conference earlier today. And Matthew, what are investigators saying tonight?
Well, so the NTSB cannot say if this was human or technical error. It is just way too soon to even answer that. They say they want people to hold off on any speculation as far as what happened in this collision. We do know that there are about 50 NTSB members here on the scene working the investigation. And according to the U.S. Department of Transportation, Sean Duffy, there was working communication between the aircraft and air traffic control. Their flight patterns were standard. American Eagle Flight 5342 was on its final approach when it collided with the Army helicopter, which was on a training flight just before 9 o'clock last night. Duffy also said the military helicopter was aware of the passenger airplane in the area. The American Airlines CEO also saying it's unclear why the helicopter got into the plane's path. The National Transportation Safety Board has various working groups involved in this investigation. They are looking at everything from analyzing history of flights and air traffic control to the engines and hydraulic components. They have yet to find the black boxes from both aircraft. These boxes will have critical information that could help determine exactly what happened.
Our investigative team will be on scene as long as it takes in order to obtain all of the perishable evidence and all of the fact-finding that is needed to bring us to a conclusion of probable cause. Our mission is to understand not just what happened, but why it happened, and to recommend changes to prevent it from happening again.
And as of this morning, crews have been able to recover 28 of the 67 victims. But of course, those numbers are only going to go up as the recovery efforts are underway. And we're hoping to get more of an update from the DC Fire and EMS. We're also being told that the NTSB is planning to speak with the families of these victims, many of whom are still trying to make their way here to DC. There's also been conversation, especially last year, just how busy DCA has been. Some lawmakers being vocal against having more flights here at the airport, including Senator Mark Warner of Virginia. We caught up with him earlier today. He says that likely is going to be a conversation to be had later, but not right now. Guys.
Yeah, right now the focus is on trying to find as many of the people whose lives were upended in that split-second moment there. And these have to be the longest minutes, hours for their loved ones.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting earlier when the NTSB said some of those family members were still trying to make their way to DC to sort of get the help they need and also process what happened over the skies last night. You know, as we mentioned, there's still a very active recovery effort happening right now in the Potomac.
Yeah, let's get over to our Melissa Kim. She's live at Gravelly Point in Arlington County, not far from the airport. Melissa, we know these rescue crews have not stopped working.
Well, guys, right now we have been here all morning and all afternoon at Gravelly Point. I just want to show you what just happened moments ago. We saw some of the recovery crews here coming out of the Potomac with scuba gear on. So they've obviously been working very, very hard in these hours of the morning and afternoon. And when they've come out with wreckage, when they've been carrying pieces of debris, they've been taking it to that little tan tent, the tan neutral colored tent over there, presumably presumably figuring out what those pieces of the wreckage are. And this obviously having an effect on all of the families who are waiting for answers, but also the people who live here as well. At Gravelly Point in Arlington, federal, state, and local officials continue to recover debris from American Airlines Flight 5342. As police boats patrol the cold waters of the Potomac River, planes roar overhead and land at Reagan National Airport, where flights resumed at 11 o'clock this morning. Kristen Clark Taylor stood and watched those planes while holding a Bible and praying.
I didn't know anyone personally, but aren't we all members of the same human race? Aren't those children there my children too, and your children too? Doesn't that make us all belong to each other.
She lives in Reston, Virginia, but like so many others whose curiosity brought them to Gravely Point, felt comfort in being near the site.
What else would I do besides get as close as I could to the souls who perished, as close as I could to the spirit of our living God, and just say prayers.
Prayers of hope as they watch rescue crews carry pieces of the wreckage.
Prayers of strength, prayers of compassion for those souls, for the country, for the world, and just to show more of that is what my prayer is for each and every American in this nation.
And our neighbor Kristen there just eloquently putting into words what I think so many people are feeling and have been feeling for this day and last night as well. And back here live now from Gravely Point, you see a light over there by the crews now. So I believe they are expecting to work well into the night again as recovery crews continue to look for answers here in the Potomac River for families who are eagerly awaiting any kind of news. But for now, we're live in Gravely Point. I'm Melissa Kim. Back to you guys in the studio.
Yeah, you're reminded here as well that this is home. This is our airport, and it could have been any of us.
And whether you knew any of the victims or not, as the woman you were talking to so eloquently put it, we all belong to someone, and this all belongs to us now. Melissa, thank you. So we're learning more about some of the victims on board the plane. Some of them were from our area.
Yeah, according to Fairfax County Public Schools, 3 of their students and 6 of their parents died in this crash. They were returning from a figure skating event in Wichita, Kansas. The district put out a statement a short time ago saying in part, quote, "Our hearts are broken as we learned that we have lost members of our FCPS family in the tragic accident at Reagan National Airport last night. I invite you to join me in praying for our families, friends, and colleagues that we know have lost loved ones in this tragic accident."
Now, some people on the plane were also former Loudoun County students, and the district also released a statement from there saying this unimaginable loss has deeply affected our community, and with great sorrow we have learned that multiple victims were former LCPS students. Many other Loudoun families have also been impacted, and we extend our deepest condolences to all of those grieving in the wake of this tragedy.
Yeah, we mentioned local figure skaters were on that plane heading back from Wichita.
Yeah, our John Duran is following up on that part of the story. John, we know you're at Ashburn, one of the rinks where those children frequented, they skated, they learned, they were coached by one of the victims too.
In Leslie, where they spent so many hours together. I spoke to some parents of young skaters heading into the rink today that knew some of the young people, and some of the victims were told as young as 11 years old, and friends of those victims are inside the Ashburn Ice House right now, spending time together where they spent so many hours on the ice together. We also watched as people brought flowers and balloons in all day, filing inside, and this is what it looks like just in the lobby of the Ashburn Ice House. A memorial has been set up and continues to grow. With the permission of her father, we spoke with a 10-year-old figure skater. She says she knew many of the victims and shared some of her favorite memories.
With Everly, my favorite memory with her was when we were sitting together and we were watching the Nationals and we were watching skaters and we were just like talking and having fun together. And my favorite memory with Lydia is when she would always help me with some things, and she would always be there to talk to me and support me. My favorite memories with Franco, I don't have a lot because I don't hang out with him a lot because he's much older than me and he's a boy. But sometimes on ice he would talk to me, and that was really fun. And my favorite memory with Riel is playing games with her and talking, and I love all these people and they really support me. And my favorite memory with my coach Ina V was when she created my program that I have right now, and she is just like I think it's really creative and artistic and I love it.
We had a conversation this morning. At first she didn't quite understand what we were trying to tell her, and then I was a little more blunt with, you've lost friends last night.
You heard Alexis talk about her coach, Ina V. Ina is a very well-known figure skating coach in the community. Many of the skaters I talked with today and their parents knew Ina. She was supposed to be coaching today. She was coming back from a developmental camp last night. She was on that plane with some of her young skaters. And I was told by a local figure skating coach that the developmental camp after those national championships in Wichita are only for some of the best in young skaters. And Alexis told us in that interview as well just how many of them had Olympic dreams. It's just extremely tragic. And like I said, these guys are inside right now remembering their friends and continuing to heal together.
John, if you know anything about the ice skating community, you know, as you mentioned, about time. They spend so much time together, early mornings before school, after school is over, weekends, competitions, and those coaches and the staff that were lost would have been right there with them.
Yeah, and your heart aches for these little kids. One, they're processing loss, but also this catastrophic loss as well.
Of young friends.
Exactly.
They can see themselves reflected in this loss. John, thank you for that story tonight.
Yeah, again, this is impacting so many people. We are learning that members of a Prince George's County-based labor union were also on board American Airlines Flight 5342. Steamfitters Local 602 confirms 4 of their members died in this crash.
Yeah, the union represents 5,000 journeymen, apprentices, and helpers in the D.C. region. In a statement on social media, union leaders said in part, as more information continues to come in, we are heartbroken to confirm that 4 members of UA Steamfitters Local 602 were among the victims of the American Airlines flight yesterday. The entire United Association is grateful to the first responders who worked tirelessly through the night and who will continue to investigate what happened.
Yeah, and some of the flight crew members on that American Airlines flight are also being identified tonight. This is one of the pilots right here, 28-year-old Samuel Lilly. In a Facebook post, Lily's father said, quote, "Now it hurts so bad I can't even cry myself to sleep. I know I'll see him again, but my heart is breaking." Also on board that flight, Ian Epstein. He was a 53-year-old flight attendant based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. His family says he leaves behind 2 children.
And we also know the identity of the crew chief on board the Black Hawk helicopter. This is Ryan O'Hara. Our sister station in Atlanta confirmed that news this morning. He, too, leaves behind a wife and a 1-year-old son. If you believe you may have some loved ones on board Flight 5324, American Airlines has set up a toll-free hotline. That number is 800-679-8215. Again, it's 800-679-8215. And we'll be right back.